Ladies and gentlemen, as you step in, make sure to hit the like button. I really appreciate it. Right now, I'm watching Travis Kelce hoist up the Lombardi, and he was just yelling that you got to fight for. He thinks he's a beastie boy now. But congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs. I said this was going to happen. I clearly had said that they really did not have an answer for Kelce. They didn't. The fact that they made it a shootout went totally against them. The difference in the game was, and it turned out to be actually the fumble by Jalen Hurts was huge. That actually turned out to be the difference in the game. Forget the field and the fact that the Eagles, with a chance to score touchdowns, scored 2 field goals. And I knew at 35-35, they left Mahomes and the Chiefs much too much time. And sure enough, you get that result. And obviously, I made this choice on a Wednesday. Now, let me hear, because remember, I know certain people just don't believe it, but I clearly was on this from jump. I mean, again, the edge I gave the coaching to the Chiefs. The Eagles' defense really got exposed tonight. It really did. They could not really get to Mahomes. What a terrible job by the Eagles secondary. They had no answer for Kelce. I told you that was going to be the case. And sure enough, it was. Okay. Here I go again.
And listen, I'm rooting for the Eagles. I'll be rooting for the Eagles in this one. But I'm afraid that the refs are gonna. I'm afraid the refs are gonna have a couple of dollars on old peppermint patty.
And sure enough, I have to go because that was such a BS. And the reason I say that is, folks, that was such a BS call. I mean, you can't make that call in a Super Bowl. The so-called illegal touching, that was a ridiculous call. And I knew that they were going to get at least 1 or 2 of those. Now, to be fair, the Eagles got a call too, because you can make a case Goddard really didn't. That was a borderline catch. But again, the difference in the game, the Eagles defense didn't get the job done. They did not harass Mahomes up the middle. That was a terrible job by the Eagles front 7. It was just bad. But I digress. Now, how did I say it was going to end again?
Got it on that dude. I was just saying they're gonna choose that dude. Yeah, I'm hoping the Eagles fly myself, but I believe the final score will be Chiefs 35, Eagles 31. And that is why I'm wearing my Chiefs jersey. Now, I do have an Eagles jersey. And it's, even though he did not play long with the Philadelphia Eagles, as you know, I wore my Terrell Owens jersey before. Yeah, I would love for the Eagles to win this football game, but I'm just afraid that the fix, the NFL, they like seen the Tom Brady specials and all. So I'm just saying. And of course, this is the legendary, rest in peace to the legendary Derek Thomas. Now, my pick for MVP, of course, is going to be Peppermint Patty. I don't know if you want to. Oh man, as long as there are no peppermints involved, all right.
And yes, America, I told you that Patrick Mahomes is going to win the MVP. I was off by 1 point as far as the Eagles and Kansas City score. I said 35-31. It actually was 1 point closer than that. But I clearly had said, ladies and gentlemen, that I was afraid that the fix was in and that the Philadelphia Eagles were going to lose this one. I was very disappointed in the Eagles defense. I mean, they made a few hits, no question about it. But defensively, they just did not get the job done. Their secondary just couldn't get it done. They had no answers. Travis Kelce did whatever he wanted. Peppermint Patty with some huge runs. It was just a terrible job. Terrible job all the way by the Philadelphia Eagle defense. I mean, and I said, I also told you if Pacheco runs for over 75 yards, that the Chiefs will win that game. Pacheco did that and then some. Pacheco was very, very effective running the football for the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City ran the ball just about as well as Philadelphia. And that was a bad sign. Miles Sanders did absolutely. Jalen Hurts and that kid, the Greenwell kid, they were Philadelphia's best runners all night. Miles Sanders gave you nothing. Nothing. I mean, that was such a terrible job. Such a terrible job by Miles Sanders. Hey, Michelle's daughter, how you doing this evening? I'm really so disappointed. But I called it. I mean, I guess I don't know if you were there earlier, but I clearly called it. I said that Mahomes was going to win the MVP. I told you that it was going to be a close game, but the Chiefs would pull it out. And sure enough, Pacheco, as I met, I mean, I'm a Steeler fan. Trust me, I just didn't want Pat Mahomes to win, but I am very disappointed. And sure enough, Patrick Mahomes' yardage wasn't great passing the football, but he was very efficient. He was 21 of 27 for 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. The fact that they couldn't force a turnover, that was a disgrace. Pacheco carried the ball 15 times, 76 yards, over 5 yards to carry and a touchdown. That was a huge, huge reason why they won it. Jalen Hurts was phenomenal, no question about it. But that fumble was huge. That fumble basically was the football game. That's the difference in the game. Hurts was 27 of 38. He actually passed the ball, was much more efficient than Mahomes. Hurts was also the best runner, 4.7 a carry, 70 yards on 15 carries. I told you Gainwell was more effective. Miles Sanders only carried the ball 7 times for a grand total of 16 yards. He was dreadful. Now, A.J. Brown, caught 6 balls for 96 yards and a touchdown. That 50-yard bomb. I understand, good brother. I'm a bit tired my damn self. Smith, 7 catches for 100 yards. Listen, he spread the ball around. Jalen Hurts is not the reason they lost this football game. I'm just so disappointed with that Philadelphia Eagles defense. I mean, they did not get hardly enough pressure, not one sack. That was an absolute disgrace. I mean, Hurts ran for his life more than Mahomes did. And to be honest, outside of a couple of times, I have to say it, the Kansas City, hey, listen, I was rooting for the Eagles myself. I mean, to be honest, the Kansas City defense was just as physical as the Eagles defense, and that's not supposed to happen. The Eagles front four did not impose their will. The Kansas City offensive line outplayed them, and I knew it was going to be trouble. The Eagles were not winning a shootout with Patrick Mahomes. They just weren't doing it. Travis Kelce was, listen, when you mentioned Travis Kelce, and he has 6 receptions for 81 yards. Yeah, of course he was. Remember, Juju Smith-Schuster was a second-round pick of the Steelers out of USC. I know Juju's career with us very well. In fact, Juju's emergence was ironically the beginning of the end for Antonio Brown, because Antonio Brown got jealous of Juju Smith getting as many targets as him. Even though I personally, and I told people that I would have gotten rid of Antonio Brown right after the season where he betrayed the locker room. That was an absolute disgrace what he did. He definitely betrayed the locker room when he was filming Coach Tomlin's speech on Facebook. I told you that Antonio Brown was a huge problem. A huge problem. And that is why Antonio Brown, who had a chance to be the number 1 Steeler receiver of all time, it goes like this. When you look at the Steelers, the greatest wide receivers in Steelers history, it goes, number 1 is Lynn Swann. Number 2 is John Stallworth. And the reason being is, and a lot of people will tell you, oh, Lynn Swann, he didn't even get 1,000 yards, blah, blah, blah. Well, these guys don't know sports. They need to shut up, because 6 out of the 9 seasons when Swann and Stallworth played together, because a lot of people will try and lie to you and say that Stallworth was better than Swann. Listen, I love John Stallworth. Don't get me wrong. 6 out of the 9 seasons that they played together, Lynn Swann was better. Look up the stats. And, of course, the Steelers were a run-first offense. It was Franco to the left, Franco to the right. And Lynn Swann, listen, you saw him for about 2 weeks. You saw Swann's catches. Shoot, I tell you, if I had to win one football game, Lynn Swann, Stallworth, you can put whoever you want at the third wide receiver. If you want to say Jerry Rice, I tell you what, ask Jerry Rice who his favorite receiver was growing up, who he patterned his game was after. He patterned his game after both guys, but he wanted to be Lynn Swann. That's all you need to know. So it's Lynn Swann number 1, Stallworth number 2, and Stallworth should have been an MVP the last Super Bowl the Steelers won, not Bradshaw, okay? But that's another story. Hines Ward is the 3rd best receiver. Also the reason that those guys are ahead of Antonio Brown, who is the 4th best wide receiver the Steelers have ever had, is because those 3 guys played their entire careers for the Steelers. It's not just the fact that they won rings. And remember, for I'll say about a 4.5 year stretch, Antonio Brown was the best receiver in football. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? From 1975 to 1978, Lynn Swann was the best receiver in pro football, bar none. Look it up. And Juju Smith-Schuster was never going to be in that class, to be quite honest. If you want to say Santonio Holmes is the fifth best wide receiver in Steelers history, I would disagree. I think, and I understand Santonio won an MVP with us, but to me, Plaxico Burress is right there. But Burress left and went to the Giants. And I tell you what, the New York Giants do not win that Super Bowl against the New England Patriots when they stopped their undefeated season without Plaxico Burress, because Plaxico Burress was a man among boys that playoff run. He was amazing. Watch that game that he played in the NFC Championship against Brett Favre in his final game as a Green Bay Packer. You tell me that Plaxico Burress wasn't a great wide receiver. We just had poor quarterback play. We saw Cordell Stewart throw away a couple of championships for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's what happened. But I digress. See, you guys got me going with the Steelers. I tell you what, watching the way that the Philadelphia Eagles played, I tell you what, the Steelers defense was playing better than the Eagles defense at the end of the season. And the Eagles, I hate to say it, the Dallas Cowboys showed you that the Eagles defense wasn't ready because they hung 40 on Philadelphia. And we know that Dak Prescott is nowhere near Patrick Mahomes. Nowhere near. And the Cowboy receiving corps is nowhere near the Kansas City Chiefs receiving corps. So that lets you know that the Eagles were going to be in trouble. Now, they had it a little easy on the way to the Super Bowl. The Giants, listen, Daniel Jones is not great, and I'm putting it mildly. And we know that Brock Purdy got hurt at the beginning. So the fact of the matter is, this was their test, and they failed miserably. Now, the Eagles did have a great season, no question about it. These two teams were clearly the two best teams in all of pro football. But the fact of the matter is, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. It's like wrestling when Ric Flair says, in order to be the man, you have to beat the man. Right now, Mahomes and Andy Reid are the Brady and Belichick of this era. They are 2 out of 3. They win one more, you got to put them up there in dynasty status. You have to do that. Again, I'm not a Patrick Mahomes fan. I'm just not. But he gutted it out today. You could tell he was clearly hurt a couple of times. But I tell you what, that was an impressive run that got him in position. He did not take the bait as far as forcing the ball down the field. Patrick Mahomes played an incredible game. The numbers were pedestrian, but that's what it called for. When you add up his running total and his passing, listen, Mahomes was magnificent tonight. I can't take nothing from that man. He's the best quarterback in the NFL, and you're going to have to play your – listen, Jalen Hurts played his A game. Unfortunately, the defense did not. You have to play your A game on offense and defense. You have to pressure them right up the middle. They toyed. Hargrave and Fletcher Cox did nothing. Absolutely nothing. I didn't hear Graham's name at all. I barely heard Hassan Reddick's. The Eagles were very, very disappointing, to say the least, on the defensive end. I didn't hear anything from Darius Big Play Slay. He did nothing. And this was without, I tell you what, the biggest fool right now is Tyreek Hill, because he cried about wanting to be traded, this, that, and the third. Well, you know what? And think about it. They didn't even have even have Nicole Hartman, who's one of their top receivers as well. They did have Valdez Scantling, and he really wasn't much of a factor. But I tell you, this team, they're going to have another 3 to 4 year run at this, because Mahomes he's just easing into his prime. And as long as they keep building around Patrick Mahomes, they're going to win a championship. They're going to win at least one more. And then we'll be talking about the Kansas City Chiefs in dynasty mode. If they win one more, they're going to be a top 10 dynasty in NFL history, especially when you look at the division the way it is. You look at what they went through, who they went through, especially after last year. Listen, you have to give credit where credit is due, and congratulations once again to the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes and friends. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, they wreaked more havoc on their side than the Philadelphia Eagles did on their side. And that is why they hoisted up the sticky Lombardi, and Jalen Hurts and friends, you're going to have to wait till next year. I don't know if the Eagles can get better. They're going to probably lose a couple of people in free agency. But you know what? They had a wonderful season. Hats off to them. Jalen Hurts is a wonderful quarterback. Right now, he's the guy in the Eastern. You know what? He I believe is the best quarterback in the NFC. He really is. Jalen Hurts. The stage is never too big for this young man. It just isn't. So it was a very entertaining Super Bowl. It was one of the best I've seen. No question about it. I believe this was a top 5 Super Bowl. No question. And that's how I'm ended. Congratulations. Kansas City Chiefs are the champions of Super Bowl 57. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. UncleClaude signing out. Make sure to take care, stay safe, and God bless.